Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're looking at a stack of material all focused on leadership, on resilience, and on this profound difference between a tough situation and the story you tell yourself about it.
Right.
And this isn't just, motivational fluff. The sources we've got argue that that split-second gap between what happens to you and how you interpret it is maybe the sharpest competitive advantage a leader can have today.
It really is. And it sounds so simple, but that's the whole mission for this deep dive. We're looking at this core idea that adversity itself, well, it's not the real threat.
The threat is something else.
The real threat is an untrained mindset, one that just reacts out of habit instead of, proactively reframing what's going on. These sources say challenges are actually untapped catalysts.
Catalysts for what, though?
For transformation. When you see them through the right lens, cognitive reframing, a growth mindset, they can change your entire leadership posture. It's essential knowledge for anyone dealing with disruption.
So our goal for you listening is pretty simple. We want you to walk away with some clear frameworks, some actual tools to reshape how you lead. Basically, how to turn all that disruption into real momentum.
And we're going to look at some powerful case studies.
Like the Apostle Paul. I mean, he sees his own imprisonment, which, let's be honest, should have been a career-ending disaster. Not as a setback, but as a strategic platform.
Exactly. That mental pivot, that's the gold we're mining for today.
Okay, so where do we start? Where does the actual battle take place?
Well, the central thesis in all this material is that the circumstance, the event, a budget cut, a pandemic, whatever, is just data.
Just data.
Just raw data. It has no inherent meaning. The real fight, the true battleground, is your interpretation of that event. It's that old saying, right? We don't see the world as it is.
We see it as we are, through our own filter. And that filter determines everything.
It does.
And what's fascinating is we see this in psychology all the time. The difference between a fixed mindset where a challenge is a threat, failure means I'm not smart.
So you avoid it.
Right. Versus the growth mindset where a challenge is an opportunity and failure just means, okay, I'm learning.
But these sources, they take it a step deeper. They talk about something they call the fallen mindset.
What do they mean by that exactly?
It's not just a bad mood. It's framed as the natural human default, that survival instinct that just drifts toward fear, scarcity, self-preservation.
Especially when things get tight.
Exactly. When a crisis hits, this mindset defaults to the worst possible outcome, usually based on past trauma, not the actual data in front of you.
And the sources use a biblical case study for this, right? The Israelites at the Red Sea.
They do, and it's such a powerful example because you have everyone standing in the same spot looking at the exact same visual data.
The Red Sea in front of them, Pharaoh's army storming in behind them. I mean, it's a nightmare scenario.
It is. I mean, picture it. The dust, the noise, the panic, the crowd operating from that fallen mindset. They interpret this as, we're trapped, we are going to die.
And that's filtered through generations of trauma and slavery.
Absolutely. Their reaction is instant, contagious panic. But then you have Moses standing right there with them.
Looking at the same sea, same army.
But his interpretation is completely different. It wasn't, we're going to die. It was, this is a stage for God's glory. He was filtering the data through the memory of God's character. Same facts, totally different outcomes based on the interpretation.
So that's the key question then. How do we actually shift that filter?
Yeah.
And it's not just a spiritual thing. The science actually backs this up.
It does. This is where we get into neuroplasticity. The biological fact that our brain isn't fixed. It's malleable. You can rewire itself.
Through Hebbian learning, right? Neurons that fire together, wire together.
Precisely. Every thought you have, every emotional reaction, it carves a little groove in your brain, making it easier to go down that path next time. You're literally building your own mindset, second by second.
And the sources draw a parallel here to Romans 12.2, be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
Yes, and the Greek word there, anakinosis, isn't just a quick refresh. It means a complete structural renovation. It's basically describing neuroplasticity.
Which gives the leader a very specific job.
A mandate, really. You have to be the chief meaning officer.
The CMO. I like that.
Because you're the one who decodes reality for your whole team. So let's say your company gets a tough funding round. There's a hiring freeze, a 15% budget cut.
The default reaction is going to be panic, we're failing, leadership messed up.
Right, and if you as the leader just slump your shoulders and pass on the bad news, you cement that fallen mindset. You make that groove deeper for everyone.
But if you reframe it.
If you stand up and say, look, this constraint is forcing us to be more innovative than ever. We are now operating with laser focus. You are actively engaging in, let's call it a neuroplasticity of grace.
Mhm.
You're carving a new, resilient path for the whole organization.
That's a huge distinction, but the sources say something often blocks this, right?
Yeah.
They call it the idol of comfort.
Yeah, this drive for a biodome existence, a perfectly controlled, stress-free environment.
And that just makes things fragile. They break under pressure.
The goal isn't just to be robust, to resist stress. It's to be anti-fragile, to actually get stronger because of the stress.
Okay, but I have to ask the practical question here. Isn't there a point where stress just becomes toxic? I mean, where's the line between building strength and just breaking?
That's a critical distinction. It's not about suffering needlessly, it's about suffering with purpose. Think of it as resistance training versus trauma. The sources use the metaphor of the windswept oak
Right, the tree grown in a controlled biodome just collapses at the first storm.
because it never developed what's called reaction wood. It
Yeah.
never had to fight. Stress, when it's framed correctly, is the raw material for growth. It shows you a strength you didn't even know you had.
And that's why the book of James tells us to count it all joy. The Greek word there, hagiomai, it's an accounting term.
An accounting term.
Yeah, it means to evaluate or calculate. So you're not supposed to feel happy about the pain. You're making an executive decision to view the crisis as spiritual appreciation, as necessary resistance training.
And this kind of agility, both spiritual and mental, is, I think, best shown in what the sources call the Pauline protocol.
Paul in prison in Rome.
Yeah, I mean, if you want a master class in this, that's it. He's literally chained to the Praetorian Guard. By any normal standard, his career is over.
But he does this incredible mental shift, the Pauline pivot, and it starts with step one, acknowledge reality. He doesn't pretend it's not happening. He says, what has happened to me?
Exactly. This isn't about denial. It isn't about glossing over the pain. And then comes step two, the cognitive shift. He looks at this huge obstacle, the chains, the prison, and he sees it as a servant to his mission.
He says it has really served to advance the gospel. And that word for advance, prokope, that's a military term, isn't it?
It is. It refers to the pioneer woodcutters who would go ahead of the army to clear a path. His suffering, his setback, was the machete clearing the way.
And step three is the evidence.
The proof. The chains meant the elite Praetorian Guard had to listen to him. And that led to conversions inside Caesar's own household. And seeing his courage, other believers got bolder. He cared more about the progress of the mission than the comfort of the messenger.
So the takeaway for any organization today is just so clear. The constraint is the catalyst.
Yes. We spend so much energy trying to get rid of constraints, but Paul's logic says the opposite. They're actually gifts.
So let's take that startup example. They lose a huge client. The fallen mindset immediately goes to panic mode. We're failures, there will be layoffs, we're done.
But the Pauline reframe is different. The leader's internal dialogue pivots to, wait a minute, that client took 80% of our attention for only 20% of our profit. This loss just freed up our capacity and forced us to get disciplined. Now we can go after partners who are a better fit.
The constraint forced clarity.
It did. And this also applies personally. The sources bring up the theology of the thorn from 2 Corinthians. Paul's first reaction is that the thorn is a hindrance. He prays for it to go away.
But the divine reframe flips it. My power is made perfect in weakness.
So the question you have to ask is, what grace, what specific strength is available to me in this struggle that just is not available in comfort?
And that mindset has to become part of the organization's vocabulary because these narratives are contagious. Panic is viral.
But so is courage. As the leader, you're the chief narrative officer. You have to audit the language.
So you replace, we have a problem with.
We have a constraint to solve. A problem feels like a dead end. A constraint is just a boundary that forces creativity.
And this is a big one. Replace I failed with I gained data.
Yes. Failure is not a moral verdict on you. It's just a painful lesson. It's a buoy marking shallow water so you don't wreck the ship there again.
This also helps with navigating loss. The sources call it the theology of pruning from John 15.
Where the vine dresser prunes the healthy branches so they can bear more fruit. The pain of the cut is real, but the purpose is concentration.
Reframing loss as concentration. That's a tough concept. I mean, most leaders would see any kind of reduction as a public failure. How do you communicate that without it sounding like you're just spinning bad news?
You have to honor the pain, but you have to emphasize the strategic focus. You look at the organization and you name the sucker shoots, the low-yield projects that look busy but just drain energy.
So you're not just shrinking.
You're not shrinking. You're eliminating waste to prepare for maximum yield. It changes the whole story from failure to preparation.
Okay, so if this is a discipline, how do we actually train ourselves to do this when we're under pressure?
The sources introduce what they call the spirit-led ABC model.
It's based on cognitive behavioral therapy, right?
Exactly, but with a spiritual component integrated. So A is the activating event, say you get some harsh criticism.
Right.
C is the consequence, anger, anxiety.
And B is the critical part, the belief, what you tell yourself about the event.
And the big insight is that A doesn't cause C. Your belief, your interpretation at step B is what causes C.
So renewing your mind is about inviting the Holy Spirit, the advocate, into that step B. Why is that part so important?
Because the fallen mindset at step B defaults to what the sources call the accuser's verdict. This proves I'm incompetent, I'm a failure. So you need to do a verdict check
You bring in the advocate's perspective.
to challenge that story, to ask, is this thought based on truth, or is it based on fear and accusation? That intervention changes the belief, and that changes the consequence.
Okay, so what are the practical exercises? How do we practice this?
The first one is the take every thought captive audit. This means you actually have to log your thoughts.
Write them down.
Yes, write down the exact anxiety-triggering thought. So Q3 numbers are down. The initial thought is, I'm a bad leader. I'm going to get fired.
You log that fear, then what?
Then you write the specific truth, a reframe right next to it. So the reframe is, Q3 numbers being down reveals a flaw in our sales process, not in my value as a person. This is data we can use to fix the system.
That immediately shifts you from self-pity to action.
It does. And the second exercise is the Ebenezer review. The idea here is that resilience is fueled by memory.
You gather your team, you put a timeline on a whiteboard, and you mark past crises in red.
And then you ask the key question, what specific good came out of that disaster? We tend to forget our past wins when we're in a current struggle.
So by visualizing past survival, you build real confidence for what you're facing now.
And one final tool, the what if even if matrix. Our anxiety is always asking, what if? What if we lose the client? What if the product fails?
And the resilient mindset answers back with even if.
You force yourself to write down the worst case scenario. What if we lose Q4 earnings completely? Then you immediately write the even if plan.
So even if we lose Q4, we now have data showing us where to focus. Even if we have to downsize, we will do it with dignity and refocus the mission.
Exactly. It takes the teeth out of fear because you've already accepted the worst case through a lens of purpose and sovereignty.
And I think it's crucial to make a distinction here. This isn't toxic positivity.
Not at all.
It's not just smiling while the ship is sinking. It's being honest about the pain and optimistic about the purpose. It's saying, this is incredibly painful, but this decision saves the mission long term.
Ultimately, all these sources point to the idea that resilience isn't a personality trait. It's a spiritual discipline. It's the hard work of anchoring our fearful interpretations to an unmovable truth.
And that ultimate anchor is the unshakable kingdom from Hebrews.
Right. The passage says the crisis is a shaking. It's designed to remove things that needed to go. Our pride, our self-sufficiency, our idol of comfort, to make sure that what remains is permanent.
So the goal isn't to bounce back to who you were before the crisis.
The goal is to bounce forward into who you're becoming.
So that leaves us with one final provocative thought for you to take with you this week as you face whatever constraints you're dealing with.
If the cross reframed the ultimate defeat, Friday's crucifixion, into Sunday's victory, what would it take for you to begin treating your current struggle as a potential turning point? The Sunday that emerges after your Friday, rather than just a dead end.
Until next time, keep digging deeper.